Mao Zedong was born on December 26, 1893 in the Hunan province of China. His family started out very poor up until his father became a prosperous grain dealer. Mao's childhood consisted of much of working on a farm for his family. He continued this work until he finally left for Changsha to attend school. When the revolution against the Qing broke out in 1911, Mao joined the fight up until the war ended in the spring of 1912. Afterwards, Mao would go back to school. In 1919, Mao attended the Peking University, where he listened to lectures from intellectuals such as Hu Shi, Qian Xuantong, and Chen Duxiu. These would later help with his philosophy and motives in his career. While staying in Beijing, Mao engaged himself as much as possible in reading, which later introduced him to the idea of communism. By 1922, Mao had become known as an expert in revolutionary planning. He made decisions that would affect thousands. Later that year, Mao was put to work with the communists to establish a united front between the communists and the Kuomintang. After several years of hard work, the front was established and Mao had arisen to the part of the head of the Communist Party. Mao was sent to the countryside by the United Front to gain support from the peasants to fight foreign imperialism in China. Due to his prior work with the peasants, many immediately joined Mao's cause. Mao's support continued to grow when in December 20th, 1926, he went up onto the stage of the Magic Lantern Theater in Changsha and spoke to an audience of over 300. Who all cheered for him as the leader of the Chinese Revolution, who paid particular attention to the peasant class. By 1934, Chiang Kai-shek of the Kuomintang broke the United Front and the treaty between the Kuomintang and the Communists. This caused the Communist forces to fall back to a mountain layer in Jiangxi, where they continued to hold out until October of 1934, when their resources and supplies began to run low, and they were forced to move out. This marked the start of the Long March. The Red Army marched for a year and traversed over 4,000 miles through 12 different provinces and crossed over 24 rivers and 18 mountain ranges, until their trek ended in Shanxi. Throughout the march, Mao's bond between his people grew, and he gained much respect from the people. After the conclusion of the march, Mao sought for a way to regain his fame, as well as re-establish the Communist Party in China. Mao realized that ever since the Sino-Japanese War, the Japanese have been proven to be a nuisance to China, so if he could get everyone to fight against the Japanese, this could be very helpful in making him regain his power. Upon hearing that Mao was back, Chiang Kai-shek saw this as a chance to eliminate the Communists while they were still weak. This proved to be unsuccessful, however, and Chiang was captured. However, instead of killing Chiang, Mao let him go, as long as he would promise to re-establish the United Front and stop fighting with the Communists. This really helped to increase Mao's prestige as well as his popularity with the people. In 1958, Mao launched the Great Five-Year Plan, which was set up in order to modernize China. Many communities were assigned to harvest a specific resource, steel. This plan proved to be an economic failure. Many industries went into turmoil because the quality of the steel being produced was less than adequate. In addition to this, the grain production was lowered because many farmers who previously specialized in farming were now set in mining steel. The five-year plan proved to be a major detriment to Mao's prestige among the people, so this was followed by the Cultural Revolution. On May 16, 1966, the Cultural Revolution began. This was started by Mao in order to purge capitalism from the nation and strengthen the socialism with the people. In order to do this, Mao's theory was to continue revolution and reach out to the Chinese young who took a liking for him. Using them, he would create the Red Guard troops around the country in order to purge out the capitalists. In addition to students, the revolution reached out to the working class, peasants, soldiers, and revolutionaries to create propaganda and big character posters that helped to put socialism back on track. Eventually, the PRC constitution included the four great rights of great democracy, which included the right to speak out freely, to air one's views fully, to write big character posters, and to hold great debates. Anybody that was suspected of having a non-communist background was put into prison and punished. On August 18, 1966, over 11 million Red Guards gathered in Beijing at Tiananmen Square to get a glimpse of Mao, who congratulated the people on their fantastic work for establishing socialism, despite the casualties and falsely accused victims of imprisonment during this time. The Cultural Revolution continued and was claimed to have ended on 1969 at Mao's death, although its active phase lasted up until the death of the government figure Lin Biao in a plane crash in 1971. To this day, Mao lives on as a figure of great dispute amongst the people of China, to whether he was a good leader or a bad one.